Hello, this is Jarrett Struby, and this is my case study for Module 15 in AEP 858. This case study concerns Truman Elementary School. So let's begin with our analysis of the case. So Truman Elementary School is a pre-K through 8th grade school. It's set in a suburban community outside of a medium sized city in the Midwest. There's 700 students in the school. It's the largest school in middle school in the district. 15% of the population is free reduced lunch, and 5% do not speak English at home. Mostly Spanish is spoken in that population. So here's what we know about the situation. We know that the reading isn't where it needs to be, and it's getting worse from year to year. By cohort, so a student in fourth grade is farther behind than they were in first grade. And this is a continuing problem, and it has come to the attention of the parent-teacher organization. And the principal has done a preliminary observation of classrooms, come to some conclusions, and has gotten the district reading supervisor to come do some observations and weigh in, and they seem to be in agreement on what some of the problems are. And there is also a opportunity from the State Board of Education for a grant that would help support and address the reading instruction in the school and district. So what do we need to know? So we don't know what the professional development situation in that school or district looks like. We don't know why individual needs aren't being met, that why only a whole class instruction and a little bit of group instruction, but the group instruction isn't differentiated. We don't really know what the current curriculum is. We've learned that it's not really working. We don't know if the current curriculum could be adapted or if it just needs to be scrapped and completely redone. We don't really understand how the grant is written to define high poverty, because I come from a high poverty school, and 15% doesn't seem high poverty to me. But just depending on how it's defined, it could be. What programs for reading exist? How are students currently monitored? Is it just through something like the CAP test or the MAP test? Or is there a building level or district level assessment that they do? So we don't really know what their assessment schedule kind of looks like for the school. And more importantly, probably most importantly, is there time for the teachers to get together as like a learning community to plan and come up with strategies, or are all the teachers pretty much left to their own devices individually? So the problem is that reading achievement is low. They're falling further behind every year. It has come to the attention of the parents and community who are concerned now. The teachers don't seem to be equipped to give the type of instruction in reading that the students need, and that we need to get the district and building organized so that we can get the grant. So what are our action plans? What strategies are we going to do to address this? So we're going to have to look at the data. We have some data from the district reading supervisor. We need to use that data and any other data that we can get our hands on concerning reading and math. That data needs to be gone over in a group, preferably as a faculty, or at the very least at the teachers that are directly impacted by it. Need to work from bottom to top, from faculty all the way up through district, in order to get the grant, and also just to improve the instruction for our students. We need to look at our monitoring practices and our intervention practices. So how are we keeping track of where students are, and when students aren't where they need to be, what supports are we giving them? How are we getting them where they need to be and filling in those gaps? And if it hasn't already, we need to prioritize time for teachers to work as a PLC, to analyze data continuously, to collaborate on strategies and come up with better instruction, and to plan. And of course, we also need to kind of present this plan to the PTO so that we can illustrate that we're addressing their concerns and keep them invested in our school. So we need to break down the data by grade, socioeconomics, and ELL to make sure that we are targeting the students that need our support. We need to look at what's math doing, because math doesn't seem to be falling behind. So what are they doing in math, and can we kind of use those strategies in our reading class, in our reading classrooms? We need to work with our district and within our schools to come up with recommendations and to put the necessary things in place for a grant proposal. And again, we need to go to the PTO and bring them into the conversation and allow them to weigh in, and also just let them know that we are addressing their concerns. So resolution. So we need to come up with professional development for our teachers. So we need to develop professional development. We need to give them the support they need to improve, and along with that, they need to be held accountable for improving, for making the necessary adjustments, whatever those may be. We need to make sure that whatever reading program we're using is addressing our student needs, whether that's taking our current system and adjusting it so that it starts to meet the needs that it's not currently meeting, or if we're just going to bring in a whole new program because the current one just doesn't address the problems at all. We need to take a look at how we're monitoring and assessing, because I'm not, we'll get to this a little bit later, but I'm not really sure the state of monitoring and assessment for reading in the district as is right now. We're going to go to the state and apply for the grant to help implement these improvements, and we're going to the PTO to keep them in the loop and get them involved, keep them involved and bought into the school and their students' instruction. So our debrief. So while this was going on, I was wondering a little bit about the school culture and how that's affecting instruction. I've been in a building where we've had a change in administration, which happened 2 years ago at this school, and that can have a huge impact on school culture, and which then impacts instruction and student learning. So I'm just wondering what were things like with the previous principal, and how have things changed with the new principal. Big question on my mind was, how has professional development been handled in this district? Generally, when we have something that is a problem several years in a row, the professional development would have addressed that at some point. There would have been, at the very least, time allocated to address it, but not necessarily before now. So it's anyone's guess. And more importantly, like, was this already on the radar before the PTO brought it up, or had this just been kind of buried until the parent-teacher organization brought it up and said that they were concerned about it? So just a lot of background things that happened before we came to this case. So what are some things that are involved? What changes need to happen in the school as a whole, other than instruction? Well, we've kind of already established that something instructionally needs to change. What needs to happen maybe in the structure of the school, how students are organized, how teachers are organized, to kind of help our improvement. What is the connection between reading and math? It seemed to be made a big deal that students were falling behind in reading, but not math. So what's that connection there, and where is the carryover? Um, what happens if the school doesn't get the grant? Is this just going to be dropped and say, well, there's nothing we can do? I don't think that's acceptable. I would make sure to have some backup plans in case that this grant funding didn't come through. That maybe we couldn't address it as well as we could with the grant, but it still needs to be addressed. If our students are falling farther and farther behind every year, that's just not acceptable. We need to address it somehow. Obviously, with the grant money, it would be easier and probably better, but what's our backup plan? And how are teachers currently supported? How have they been supported in the past? How can we support them better in the future? And how might that change in the future? So when I used the data, I broke the data down. We would break the data down to find meaning, make meaning out of it, discover patterns, identify the problem areas and the people and the students that need our support most. We use observational data to find the sources for those patterns and problems. So the reading was going down because these needs weren't being met. They weren't learning phonetics. They weren't learning how to sound out words, things of that nature. And we communicate that data to the parents' community so that they would understand our plan to address the issue. So how did my knowledge bring change? So I was able to collect and disaggregate data to present to the PTO and apply for the grant. I was able to keep everybody informed, keep everybody in the loop, keep those lines of communication open, which I find very important for the culture of a school, and because that helps with working with the community, working within faculty, working with the district to make improvements for our students. And of course, you have to support the teachers because by supporting teachers, we can improve instruction for our students. Kept the dialogue open by keeping communication open, keeping things as transparent as we could, promoting collaboration amongst our faculty, within our building, within our district, with the community, and keeping those plans open for continuous improvement, because this isn't going to be a one-year adjustment. This is going to be an ongoing endeavor to keep our instruction relevant and good for our students, because they're behind, so we have to get them caught up. Then we have to keep them where they need to be, if not farther along. And that's the end. Thank you very much.